And that is how we get started. Hello, everybody. This is 20 Question Tuesdays, and I am Jeff Plankenhorn. Let me know you can hear me out there because I am broadcasting from the home studio today. Down at my studio, aka the Plank Tank, we are having internet troubles. This week, my guest on 20 Question Tuesdays is the fantastic and amazing and wonderful BettySoo. And I am thrilled, and we are going to have a really, really, really good time. For those of you who have never been to a 20 Question Tuesdays, basically the deal is this. Early on in the pandemic, I turned my computer screen on one day and decided I would just do a little workshop on a Tuesday here on Vancouver Island, where my wife and I spend pretty much, half the year here, half the year in Texas. It's awesome. But wanted to do a little workshop, turned on the camera, and I just started getting questions from all over the place. It was so great, everybody who showed up. I had musicians, and I had songwriters, and I had like pickers, and I had managers and promo people and people who didn't know necessarily anything about music, but had the best questions. And it was really cool. So Sheila Steele from Austin Music TV asked if I would put it on the cable channel. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. Sure. And then I got this app that, streams out to multiple platforms. This means streaming out to multiple platforms. I don't know why. And basically, I saw a little button at the bottom that had a little picture of a person and a plus sign. And I was like, ooh, I can invite guests. And that will be way more interesting than just me yapping every single week. And I think my first guest was Michael O'Connor. And then I had like Jamie Harris. And then I had like Scrappy Judd Newcomb. And then, it just started snowballing. Bill Kirchen, Ruthie Foster, Ray Wiley Hubbard. Sometimes I have pickers on. Sometimes I had my first house concert proprietor on, Peggy Hanna from Peggy's Porch Party a couple weeks ago. That was really awesome. And I plan to have people from all over Nashville and other towns besides Austin. Dave Cox, friend of BettySoo, is going to be on. Not Dave Cox, Doug Cox is going to be on later this month. And he's an incredible slide player here on Vancouver Island. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping real quick for the week. For those of you who don't know, I am coming back to Texas at the end of the month, or in August, for a whole bunch of shows, and I probably should promote that. Go to, don't laugh, plank.wtf.shows if you want to be able to get tickets for all those kind of things. You check them out there. That's really great. Also, I have a absolutely brand new EP that just came out with a song by Joe Ely, because I do this covered uncovered thing where I do like somebody who's a hero of mine, and then somebody famous, and then a couple of originals, and that can be found here at plank.hearnow.com. It's great. You go to that thing, and it just kind of shows you all of the places. So wherever you find music, you will find my music there. And of course, check out my playlists on Spotify and stuff. I love promoting my friends like BettySoo, like Kate Howard, who's here, like Jana Pokop, who's here. And the Roots Rock and Americana playlist on Spotify is doing really great. Thanks very much. Also, splitting the tips, as always, with my guest. As long as we can get BettySoo like a good takeout meal and a tank of gas, then I'm absolutely thrilled. And always, always really, really grateful for your generosity and for helping us all out. I'm sure somewhere in the captions I already put the tip information. That's enough of that. So without further ado, we've got a whole bunch of great questions. Special thanks to AustinCityJams.com, who also puts this online. Thank you, Kirby. For the people who don't do the socials, I know they enjoy watching this there. And here comes BettySoo. Hello, you.
Well, hello, you.
We had a little bit of a snafu because, like, I know you do so much, or you have done throughout the pandemic so much stuff online, and we were both kind of joking about how something almost always goes wrong, whether you have a sound check or not. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, and
you
it
had a
waits to
sound
go
check.
wrong. It'll be great all week, all of your practices, and then the hour before you go live. It's like
Yeah, that's
everything breaks.
exactly right. Yeah, and it was on my end this time because I'm at the home studio because this is not the home studio; it's the home. You know, my studio is the Save My Marriage studio more than anything, because my poor patient wife dealing with me being locked in this one bedroom when I was trying to do shows and stuff. She's got the patience of Job. I've said it before and I'll say it again. But enough of that. I say we dive right into the questions. What do you think?
Sounds good. Yeah,
Okay,
let's
because
do
we've
it.
got like really, really, really great questions. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna start with. Okay, and this is weird. I'm gonna start with a really, really strange one. Joseph Level says,
Oh yeah, you know
ask Betty
Joseph.
Sue, do blondes have more fun?
I'm sad to say yes.
They
Um,
they do.
I'm
Tell me
sad to
why.
say
Is there a
because you know
story?
that I was a platinum blonde for a couple years,
Oh yes, I do. Of
and
course.
it was a very eye-opening experience because
Uh-huh.
people are nicer to you when you have blonde hair. Even
No
if
way.
you've got like an Asian face and it's super obvious that it's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, people are nicer to you. It's weird.
Well, then I'm thinking about it. I get people all the time asking me if I dye my hair, which I think is ridiculous because I'm like, why would I dye this and not bother with this? I've been asked so many times, and I'm kind of doing the age gracefully thing, you know what I mean? And like, because I have a lot of friends my age that are desperately trying to hang on to their youth, and frankly, they ain't fooling anybody. You
Right. Yeah,
know,
there's no
they're
there
not fooling
you know,
anybody with the dye.
the neck
It's okay
tells
if it
the
works for you.
story, you
Oh
know?
yeah, oh
There's
yeah.
there's no avoiding old people neck. Like
No,
my neck looks older than it did 10 years ago, and 10 years from now it's going to look older than it
it's
does
gonna
now.
look
So,
older. Yeah, well, and
you
you
know,
can't have a beard to hide your chin that just becomes more and more and more. COVID or not, men get this, and so you wonder why we all love beards.
yeah.
It's not.
Well, women get that too. I mean, that's just goes with the territory, you
I
know.
don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I'm
But
one of those. I'm one of those strange men, and I'm not trying to get points. I think women get more elegant when they get older.
I love you
You think
too.
I'm full of beans?
No, I believe you. I
I do.
believe you. I
I do.
believe you. Well, you know what? I totally believe you because I mean, gosh, we started playing music together 15 years ago.
At least there's a little bit more. Yeah, around there.
And I remember like even then you would like kind of crush out on like older women.
Yeah,
Like
I did, and it's okay
and
to
not
say
and
that
not
because I'm
and not like oh I have a big crush on her,
creepy.
but just be like but you would be like god, that woman is so beautiful, and it would always be somebody like much older than us.
No, that's true. That's cool. That's cool. And I mean, it's weird because, my wife is like maybe a year and a couple months, but she says that she always liked older men. And I think
Mm.
it's just because I look older than I am, because I'm not aging gracefully. Okay, anyway,
Oh,
let's
yes,
get
you
back
are.
to
Yes, you
you.
are. No, and I mean,
I'm
it's not to
fishing.
say that you like, and I'm not saying that you were like, objectifying them in any way, but you would just be like, wow, she is so beautiful. Like, just like in a very respectful admiration.
Well, and I will say this too. I do
Sorry, I
like,
feel like I'm digging a hole.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm sure I dug that hole too. We'll get out of it together. I do like the women who go gray and let it go because I don't know, I think it's great. And I think
Yeah.
that there's so much bull crap put on women that the more that can do that. I just saw a thing online where Gillian Anderson was talking about how she's given up wearing a bra, and she's like, I don't care if I sag down to my knees, I'm not doing it anymore. And I was kind of like, man, good for you, because it's bull.
Yeah.
Be comfortable. Be comfortable
Yeah.
for crying out loud.
I have a friend who she and her partner call it the oppressor. And
The
so
oppressor.
when she comes home from a gig, he's like, do we need to remove the oppressor?
Well, because people would say if you want a man to understand a little bit, there was this thing that happened in the pandemic that would probably help, and that is like when you get in your car and you take your mask off, like after being in a grocery store or something like that, and you rip it off. People are like, "Oh yeah, it's like taking off your bra,"
Oh, totally.
because it's just you felt
Totally.
confined in this thing, and you're like,
Well,
ah.
Well,
That's good.
I would just like, even like a, not like one that doesn't fit. Like if men just wore a bra.
Yeah, that's happened. Like men carry around, like wear a bra and carry around some like a little bit of weight here,
Right.
and to kind of know what it's like,
Like
and
the
they're like,
sympathy
"Oh my God,
pregnancy
my back
belly,
is
you know?
yeah, and my back is killing me," and
And the
imagine if they
straps
made
are
it.
digging into my skin and all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, make them wear heels
And there
too.
are so many Instagram ads for bras.
Yeah,
Everybody's on the
yeah.
search
Is
for
that
one that's
right?
actually comfortable. Yeah. If
Right,
you're a
right,
female,
right.
you get so many bra ads because it's like, they're like, because everybody knows that whatever you've got is not comfortable. And guess
It
what?
doesn't matter.
The one in the ad isn't going to be either.
All right. Okay. Well,
Anyway,
anyway, we,
bras.
we came we came full circle from do blondes have more fun, and apparently in your case they do. Here's a really really nice question from Instagram from DK42. Korea is a very special place to me. How do you think your Korean heritage has influenced your music? If so, do you have a following there? Also, I'm going to Nobody's Happy Hour, planning the I-35 trek. How long will you be playing? So that's great. We get to also plug the show with that question. So I love the double question there.
That's so fun. That's so fun. That the happy hour show is an hour. Nobody's happy hour is an hour and a half, so it's from 6 to 7:30 Central Time.
Can you tell us where that is? Because it's at what used to be an old place and is now a new place. And
Yes, it's in the building and in the music room that used to be the music room for Strange Brew Coffee House. And now it is Captain Quackenbush's Coffee House, which makes me really happy because it's a space that was empty for a long time. And actually, they rented the space for years, rehabbing it and renovating it. And I love that the space has been taken over by a long-time Austin business. I mean, I used to go there 25 years ago in Hyde Park when I was a student. Oh my God, I just said how old I am. But whatever.
we're aging gracefully on
Whatever,
20
whatever.
questions.
And they've just stuck with it, like through this whole pandemic. Like their grand opening was supposed to be last March.
I
And
know.
they just have
I
been
know.
such champions. And I go in there and get their beautiful cookies and their carrot cake, which is incredible.
Well, and there were so many things about Strange Brew that had it right, and there were so many things about Strange Brew, and we were kind of just like, oh man, it was a rough deal. Long
Yeah,
story short, them getting the business side of getting the bakery and the coffee and all that stuff working first, then having a room, then having the stage, then revamping the sound system. Lee is asking, did they keep the sound system? I think it's a little bit of both, isn't it?
it
It's a
is.
little bit
It
of
is.
stuff they had, but then it's a revamp because it can't be the exact same one because the stage is different.
Right. Well,
The
they
stage is
kind of,
higher,
the stage, it's only a little bit higher. Like if you
just a
walked in,
little.
you wouldn't notice that it was higher,
Hmm.
But I think they insulated it and filled it so it's not just a giant stomp box anymore, which
Right.
was one of the things we didn't love about Strange Brew, right? And they put
Yep.
a subwoofer in there. They moved the sound box so it's like the sound person's booth a little bit, so it's a little bit more convenient. And they put more insulation in the room. They made
Hmm.
the barrier between the
It's very
like the
bright.
restaurant place and the thing more soundproof, or more sound baffling. And they made the bar both sides. Like they did a ton of improvements to that room. So um
I kind of
plus,
like how it's not so dark.
yeah, it's not as dark and there are so many more bathroom stalls than there used to be.
That's probably good too,
That's
huh?
like a
You know?
major improvement, you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
uh
Okay, so wait. Before we talk,
oh, right,
I
so
want to
come
make
again.
sure it's
Yeah,
it's nobody's happy hour,
it's nobody's
and
happy.
it's weekly.
It's every Tuesday at
It's
six
every
o'clock.
Tuesday at 6.
And I
Okay,
have a
and then
guest with
you'll
me every week, and we spin
right.
this wheel.
That's a question that's coming up.
Okay, sorry.
That's
Oh,
okay
but
because we're going to talk about that
BK,
too.
I'm going to tell you. So yes, I do feel like, um, well, I have a philosophy about musical influence, which is that we we are giant sponges. Like humans just are sponges, and um, most of our problem solving and most of our thoughts and most of our synthesis happens in our subconscious. So everything that we hear, whether it's a jingle from somebody else's phone because they have their
Oh yeah.
ads playing, or like music in an elevator, or what we choose to listen to, like all of it permeates and all of it affects the music that we make. So yes, I grew up hearing a lot of traditional Korean music because of my folks and stuff, and like we had like
But
they
you're
were
from
always.
Spring, Texas,
I'm
right?
from Spring, Texas. So I grew
Right.
up listening to a ton of like country music and pop stuff and root stuff and Texas
There you
songwriter stuff.
go.
But I
That's
also
pretty
listened
wild.
to, like Korean, like countryside rural folk singing, which is like
Hmm.
very powerful and wailing and emotive. And to me, it actually dovetails quite well with like country music and folk music. So it's all in there.
Well, one thing that people will say about you after a show, um, one of the nice things. No, I'm just kidding. One of the one thing people will say about BettySoo is like, I can't believe that voice came out of someone of small stature,
Yeah.
not a very, very, because you have a
Right.
big
Right
voice
now
and you
I'm the
have
same height as you, Jeff.
exactly. So, but because of that, and we could talk about something else regarding that too that you hipped me to that has really, really helped me.
Oh,
And that is okay. So because of that, people will say, big voice coming out of small stature, you know. But you're saying that not just the music that you listened to that was quote unquote Western was doing that kind of wailing that you like to do on occasion. You
right.
sing really beautiful, soft things like "Whisper My Name," but you also, like to get into it and dig in deep.
It's
So it's not
true.
that weird. Doesn't it makes sense that you would like both of
Yeah.
those things?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And I'm really curious what I told you.
Okay, this is the deal. When first of all, men, when you go to a merch table, try to be a little bit cooler, okay? Especially in Texas. First of all, a woman's personal space is a really, really, really something that you're not really thinking about because you're having such a great time and you're like, wow, this artist is so great. I want to take a picture with him. And then you go up to someone who's small stature like BettySoo and you go around her like this and you go like this to take a picture and you're not realizing what's happening right here. And basically we were talking about something and I didn't do it, thank goodness. I didn't do it, but it made me conscious of that forever. And it made me kind of let men know, please be aware of your armpit with a woman. I mean, for crying out loud, you should be already thinking about personal space. Not everybody wants to be hugged, you know.
Right.
So number one, that.
Right.
Number two, if somebody does want to take a picture with you, uh,
Especially now after the last year and a half.
especially now,
Yeah.
right? But I just envisioned being like you and being like, in your mind and
And
being
it
like, oh,
just
I got to
like
take a
lands
picture.
directly on your shoulder. And
Yeah.
like there are times where you just have like a wet shoulder.
Oh,
It is so gross.
yeah,
It's so
yeah, yeah. The
gross.
things
Nobody wants
that
that.
gals go through. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But anyway, okay, so that's really cool. But we also went to within your show. See, this is great. We
Mhm.
were doing a Segway City, and we never knew it was going to happen. Within your show, you just showed the wheel that you had. Could you bring the wheel back?
Yes, yes,
Because
of course. Of course.
because Heather Miller wants to know, how did you come up with the wheel idea? So let's explain the wheel and how you use it in your show and how and then you can let us know how you came up with it.
So this is the Wheel of Misfortune, sometimes called the Wheel of Terror or the Wheel of Excitement or the Wheel of
Yeah,
Dread, depending on how
yeah,
you feel about it.
yeah.
And so it has like 7 different activities on it, and
Uh-huh.
like guilty pleasure cover. That one's fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's got some music that whether or not they feel guilty about it, people probably shame them for liking it. So
Yeah,
that's good.
mine was Wrecking Ball by
Oh, it's
Miley
Miley Cyrus.
Cyrus.
Oh, and you rocked that song. It was so good.
It's a good
It was
song.
so good. It is a
I don't
good
care
song.
who you are.
It's
It's a
kind of a
good song.
perfect song.
It's written
Um,
by 7 people.
it better be good.
There's 7 people on that song. It better
It
be
better
good.
be good. Yeah. My favorite thing is the audience request cover because it's an audience request of a cover that we don't know.
Oh
So we pull
man.
up the lyrics
Wow.
and then we just come up with our own chords, our own melody or whatever. And what's so fun is that it's like if most of the audience knows the original song, then they're all in on the joke in a way because they all know how different it is, but the artists, because they don't know the cover, they're not in on it. So they're just singing these words, and it's really fun. Interpretive dance is really where the audience dances to a song
Is
that
it
we
where I get to
do.
vogue around your BettySoo thing?
Exactly.
Strike a pose around BettySoo's Patreon and
Exactly.
stuff. Okay.
We have
Um,
unveil. I mean, there's all these things. So,
unveil
right,
song is like unveil a new song. Oh,
it could
right
be a brand
now.
new song, or it could be like a song that you just like, maybe you recorded and you never play it out. We all have songs like that, right?
Oh,
That are
yes,
on
we do.
albums that we never play, or like a
Hmm.
cover that you have known your whole life, but you never perform it, or a cover you just learned and you just, whatever. It's just an
Now, how many
unveiling.
times do you hit the wheel during the show?
Usually,
Once?
usually 4 times each,
Oh
usually.
man.
Yeah. And you can land on right now, which is just make up a song right now,
Wow.
which sometimes is amazing and sometimes is amazingly bad.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I wanted, so this was originally supposed to be an in-person show. The way that it's starting right now is how it was supposed to start last March. And I wanted it to showcase how incredibly talented I feel like all my songwriter friends are. And I wanted it to be different material than you could hear at any other show,
Well, there you go. The
and
wheel is going to help do that. So that's the answer of
exactly.
how the wheel would do that, because it's impossible to know what's going to come out of that wheel. I
Right,
think
right.
it's a good mix too, because if you hit that wheel 4 times, two for each artist or whatever you end up doing, you're going to get, it doesn't matter if you hit the same thing every time, you're still
Oh
going
yeah,
to get an
yeah.
amazing,
It's four
you
for
know.
each of us. So,
Oh,
because we do a
jeez.
round of the wheel and then we do a regular song swap round, and then we do a round with the wheel and then a regular song swap round. And so half of the show is the wheel. And so the other artist, and for myself, it's stuff that we're not gonna do in other shows.
Yeah.
And um and I wanted that to be special because let's face it, like Austin artists, you can hear them, you can see them again,
Often.
it's not that rare to be able to see us. But I wanted something where you would only see this slice of them in this place. And I also wanted it to just be like vulnerable. I wanted
Mm.
us to be able to trip up and fall on our faces a little bit, and the audience see how human this whole process is. But also I felt like these are all things that like a songwriter does.
Yeah, I
Like,
like to try and get into the zone anyway.
right, when we're writing
Except the
songs,
interpretive dance.
yeah, except we imagine how people are gonna think about the songs or move to the songs. So, like, I
Oh,
feel
yeah,
like,
that's a good point. That's a
so
good point. I did
I
not
feel
even
like they're
think of that.
so they're all things that I feel like are in the songwriter's wheelhouse, but they're very private.
Mm.
And I also thought it would be really special for the audience to be able to witness that and to share in
Mm.
that a little bit, and for us to kind of take down the curtain a little bit. I thought it would be fun.
Now, I feel personally like Austin audiences tend to be a little bit more into the process and be a little bit more excited about um, new songs. Try one out. Who cares if you mess up? Now
Totally.
that becomes a mixed blessing when we get out of town, and people I know have called it, friends of mine have called it Austinitis, because we go out of town and we play our list of songs and we look at the band and go, what do you want to do next? And then people are like, I paid $20 for this. And
Right.
in
How
Austin, it's okay.
unprofessional or
It's
something.
totally like that in other cities. They're like, wait a
Right.
second, like I didn't pay to watch you do your homework. They don't understand that we play often in Austin and that people come to shows over and over again, so that they're really um, wanting, what you're giving them there,
Right. They love the
and
risk factor, you
they
know?
love it. They love it, and it's a mixed blessing, and it's something that I try and tell my younger compadres, and that when you go out of town, don't do that. Do a show. Make it when you go out of Austin. Do a show.
Write your
You
set
know,
list, go do it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you deviate, great, but like have a plan, have it be a show, get some good stories. Close to the end, one good joke to get them to the merch table. Do the things we do. Do the things we do and make it pro. Because in other towns, they're like, what's going on up there?
Yeah.
They really, really are. And we're so lucky in Austin because we
100%.
have people that will, man, I haven't been in Austin in a year and a half, but I will be next month. So we're so lucky there that people help us. So yeah, I want to mention this too,
Mhm.
because it's another good segue. You and I both have Patreon pages. Okay. Now,
Yep.
I'm going to put up your Patreon, and I'm going to put this right here, and I'm also going to make sure I put it in one more time. I've already put it in, but I'm going to put it again in the comments for everybody. I spell it? Yeah, I got it right. One of the things about your Patreon is for the people who aren't in Austin, they are able to see the Nobody's Girls shows. That's one of the benefits to becoming one of your patrons, correct?
Right, right. The Nobody's Happy Hour stuff is going out to an unpublished video link, and you can buy a pass to see it online every week
Right.
if you want, but if you want to get it for free, you can if you're a patron. So
Yep. And so if you're the kind of person who wants to watch it all the time, but you're out of town and you still, because you and I were talking about this before the show. Of course, the online stuff has gone down a little bit,
right.
but I'm not stopping because I'm staying in connection with fans from all over the place, much less, my Austin people while I'm still in Vancouver Island before the
Right.
border opens and I can get back. They're everywhere, and I don't want to stop being in touch with them. It may be a different frequency, but I just,
Exactly. Well, and
and you're doing the same.
I feel like I've gotten really close with some fans who live really far away this past year, in New Jersey and in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and like I don't want them to, I
Fade.
don't want it to kind of drift back into seeing them once a year when I happen to do a show there.
Exactly. And they like to hear new music and they like to do things. So let's just spend just a small amount of time before we get back to questions. A Patreon page is basically, it's a subscription.
Mhm.
And, what I love about mine is being able to put out music on a regular basis. I love the fans being kind of included in what I'm doing. I love them giving feedback. They really help me kind of figure out what's next. All of my songs that are on the new EP were on my Patreon first and were kind
Mhm.
of tested out, whether in a demo form or unmixed and mastered, things like that. Other projects that they wouldn't get to hear, they hear on there.
Yeah, totally.
What is your because my experience is that it's I was really skeptical at first. I was kind of like, okay, well, this is weird. Like they're gonna pay monthly and I'm gonna do stuff, and then I realized after starting to do it how connected to the people on my Patreon I am.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really I feel like a leveling up of relationship with people, um and like you, I had hesitations at first, mostly because I was just a little bit shy about asking, and so I think I signed up for Patreon and then didn't launch a page for like 2 or 3 years, you know?
Oh, really? Because
Yeah,
it has been out there. Yeah, I was
and
asked about it years before I did
yeah,
it.
exactly, and so it took me a while to really get over that. I mean, and I just have a hang up about that, like, I clearly need more therapy, but about
Oh, no, you're
asking
not
for
the only
things.
musician who
But you know
feels
what?
that way.
The most eye-opening thing to me about it was that, um, it's I thought of it as very transactional before I started it. And now that it's been going for a while, it's much more relational. And I think of it much more akin to like a public radio station that you're a
Yeah,
member of. Like you're a sustaining member of this thing that you don't want to go away. And like you may or may not listen to that station all the time. You may or may not care about the mug or the t shirt. You just want this thing to not stop.
not go
And
away.
right. And I feel like that is the message that my patrons have resoundedly been saying, is like the reason that they join most of the Patreon pages that they're on. They love the content, when they have time to check it out, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
And when they don't, they're just glad that they're part of making sure it doesn't have to go away. That like you and I don't have to become baristas again,
yeah. No kidding, or whatever, right?
or
Yeah,
whatever
it's
again. Yeah.
it's that's a really really great way to put it. I agree. Okay, so we're about halfway through the show already. And I just want to say, first of all, thanks to Austin Music TV for putting this on the cable. Thanks to AustinCityJams.com for also putting it out there. Thanks for everybody who's watching. I try not to mention this too much, but real quick, this Boom, boom, boom. I always like to split the tips with my guest, make sure that I get them like a meal or a tank of gas. So thanks, a tank of gas. So thank you for that. If you're on television, you can see it right here. Okay, enough of that. We did it. And we're back with BettySoo, and we're going to ask some more questions. And we're also going to say hi to David Carl. David Carl, I just did a house concert for him on Salt Spring Island, one of the prettiest places
Oh,
on
I
earth.
love Salt Spring Island.
Just got back from Salt Spring Island. Well, maybe you could do a house concert for Dave when you're around. It was a gas, and it was right in between me doing the 39 Days of July festival in Duncan, and so it just worked out perfectly. It was really great. Hey, David, how you doing? Lee Doctari Cataret says, has the online stuff made CDs obsolete? Personally, I would say CDs were kind of already a thing where people were just like, some people still listen and they're just kind of saying thank you. I enjoyed the show. It was more like that kind of thing. My joke, because it's true, is a kid came up to the stage and he was like, I loved your set. I bought your CD. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I bought it. And like he said that to me, and I was like, okay, well, that kind of feels a bit like a personal victory right now, you know? And so that's kind of that's my joke to get people to the merch table.
Oh, Spring,
And
I love you. To say Spring, I love you.
Hey, Spring, how you doing? Patreon, you follow both of ours, I'm sure, and thank you so much for being a patron. You're the best, and you also put up really great content for us to help, and you share stuff, which is a great thing you do too. What is your take on the? I mean, my take on the CDs is it was kind of going the way of the dodo with Spotify and stuff. I feel like people who buy them, they either like the sound or they just want to kind of say thank you at a show.
I think that's right. I think people want to, again, they want to express their support. It's more about keeping the music going, expressing support, and you know, sometimes like just having that moment at the merch table together and like signing the thing. They have a memento, like a physical memento of a show that they loved. Also, I feel like a lot of my music lovers get CDs to give away. Mm-hmm. And they feel like telling people to check somebody out on Spotify. They're like, I don't know if they're ever going to pull that up on Spotify.
It's
but if
true.
I give them this CD, I feel like there's at least a 50% chance that they'll pop it into something and try to give it a spin, or at least it's a physical reminder of who to look up on Spotify, right?
Exactly.
Like, so I feel like that's just like the Patreon thing. I feel like CDs now are that token of support.
Yeah. It's a bit more of a thank you. And definitely, what was I going to say? Lee says, I love albums, not singles. And unfortunately, my friend, the main thing being Spotify and the main thing being Apple Music and all those, when you put out an album, you get one single, you get one shot, and that's it. You don't, unless you put out single album, if you put out an album, you can only push one song. And that's why I started doing the thing that I was doing. That's specifically why I started doing these kind of like EPs in a vein, because then I can just put out every single song and then put out the EP. Because if I don't, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Yeah.
You know? And unless you have a really, really, really great mechanism behind you, which I don't, it's the only way I can get more bang for my buck as far as promoting the songs. It's tough. It's tough for sure. But,
yeah,
you know, we're all kind of like figuring things out. David, I will talk to BettySoo. But yes, we will talk. We'll talk. And Randy, thank you for playing CDs between sets. I love when people play. I don't like hearing my own music before a show because it's freaky.
It's so mortifying.
But I love hearing other people's music before shows that are like local or other people who play that show. Like that's the coolest.
Yeah. Well, Larry, you know? I just moved from this past year from a car that had a tape player to a car with just CD. So I'm kind of mourning my tape player.
Wait, you went from tape to CD? CDs already are gone.
I mean,
Most
my
of
old
them.
car had CDs and tapes, and this one just
Okay.
has CDs. But I
Okay.
still have
So
a tape player in
just
my bedroom that I use. So,
that's exactly it. I got
I'm
to
like
get back.
I'm an old lady inside. But Jana, I'm one of your patrons, so I want that latte. I just want to say.
Yeah. I'll take a latte too, Jana. I'm a patron. Um, I gotta, yeah. Yeah. Wait. What was I gonna say? Lee, you had some good questions, um, and I really love this one. What instruments would you like to play that you haven't yet? Because you are a multi instrumentalist. You come to shows often with an accordion,
Yeah.
and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
It fits and it's beautiful, and you
Oh,
know
this
how
is
to play it.
well, thank you. Years ago I bought a lap steel and I never have really sat down and practiced it and learned to play it. So
Mhm.
that is something that I would actually really like to do. And years ago, a friend gave me a banjo, and I I never learned to frail,
Yeah.
but just plucking it like I do a guitar, I got like somewhat conversant with it, but then I went out on the road and I wasn't playing it so much. So I'd like to do that. Um I always have regretted quitting the violin
Mm.
when I was a kid. And I think if there's I've always thought about like violin or viola or cello, like one of those. I've always really wanted to play one of those.
Cello is possibly. I think cello and tenor sax are my two favorite instruments. Something about the range kind of hits
Well,
me in the feels.
they say, the cello has the most sympathetic frequencies
Mhm.
that are similar to the human voice.
Oh wow, no wonder I like it.
So
Yeah.
it tends to draw a very emotional response from people.
Hmm.
So
It's interesting too. Being a multi-person who likes to pick up instruments and pretend they know how to use them in the studio, and somebody will say, "Oh, do you play ukulele?" I go, "Sure, give it to me." And that kind of thing.
yeah,
You can do that, but you can't do that very well with a bow. And just like pedal steel is very hard. Like I don't practice pedal steel near my wife. I don't. I don't. If I'm learning something and practicing something, it is away. If I
well,
pick up my guitar, noodle, I can noodle around my wife, and she
I
thinks
have
it's pleasant.
I have to confess, I long term loaned the pedal steel I bought from you
That's
to
okay.
somebody because
It's getting
I
used.
mean, I bought it from you, and then it was sitting there, and somebody was like, "God, I really want to learn pedal steel," and I was like, you can borrow mine for an unnamed amount of time because I'm
I
not
spent a
playing
lot of
it."
time playing that. That steel was my road steel for the Bob Schneider band. I used to play that pedal steel through a talk box,
Oh, cool.
and which is not as unheard of as you think it is. Some old country players did that, and it's really creepy and weird. All right, cool. Let's see. Okay, so really lap steel banjo. You know who plays banjo who never learned the official three finger style and never learned how to frail but is awesome at it is
Mm.
Susan Gibson. Susan Gibson kind of only plays her
Mm.
own style of she doesn't know the traditional flat and Scruggs three finger rolls.
Yeah,
She
I
doesn't
don't.
play with a pick and she doesn't frail, right?
Right.
And so she just made up her own thing. And guess what? It sounds great. It
Yeah.
fits her songs. So there's no rules. But if you do ever want to learn one little tip that you didn't ask for, when you there's a
Free lessons,
book.
I like it.
Yeah, there's a book for banjo called Earl Scruggs and the Five String Banjo.
Hmm.
It has tablature that is so easy. I swear in a week you'll be playing Cripple Creek and nailing
Okay.
it.
Okay.
It is such a great book as far as like I am going to learn the basics of playing like bluegrass banjo. I've never seen a book where I was like, "Oh yeah, you get that one, you're good.
Well,
You'll have a start."
I admit that I'm kind of a bad student in some regards. Like I'm a good student of an instrument in that I will sit and just
Play
lose
for
all
hours.
time and play for
Yeah.
hours and hours.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm a bad student in that like I'm such not a purist. So
Yeah.
like, like I don't
Doesn't
play
matter.
accordion in anybody else's style, and I don't play, like things that I do on every instrument, um, are more just to serve the songs that I want to write. And so like when I was playing or picking up banjo, it was more just like I was writing songs on it based on what I just heard that tone doing,
Yes.
and like what I wanted that tone to say and to serve this song in a certain way. So I don't know. It might just be laziness, and that's a really good excuse.
It's funny because I know a few. I know a
Or
few.
it may be like, trying to
It
be
might
your
be
own
the
artist.
creative, yeah, it might be the creative influence as well. There's certain guitar players over the years that I've played with that kind of harp on themselves as not being a good guitar player, but because of the fact that they just lay their fingers down and figure out a chord, they come up with stuff that a technical guitar player wouldn't. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And for somebody like me who kind of sees both sides of it, I love that. I love it, love it, love it. And I love it on all instruments because I think that's really when we look at somebody like Elizabeth Cotten and we freak out at how she's playing the guitar upside down, but strung, the other way and all this kind of thing. She was just figuring out what worked for her.
Right.
It's
Right.
brilliant, it's amazing, and that is why it's genius, but it's easy because she was figuring out what works, and
Exactly.
we're not trying to specifically do something hard. We're trying to do something that sounds good that we can do,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. Exactly. That was like, I learned one of my favorite Peter Case songs ever recently, during this shutdown time. And then he came onto my live stream, and he had seen that I had played it. And so he was like, "Well, let's do that for our duet," which I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna
Yeah.
please don't let me mess this up." And and it was so interesting because like I thought I had gotten almost all of the song exactly, but there were some things that I couldn't get because my fingers won't stretch across as many frets
Mhm.
as his
Mhm.
will. And and he was like, but there were other things that I thought I played just like him, according to my ears, just listening to the
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
And he was like, "Ooh, I like what you did there," or "Oh, I like the way that you know that you're voicing for that chord there." And like he had me like show him my voicing for it, and he was like, "I might play it that way." And
This is exactly what I'm
it was so
saying.
cool. Yeah.
The writer of the song was like, "Well, that's a really cool way to voice it," and you were figuring out how to do it, so it wasn't a huge stretch. People who have, especially ladies, I always think of like Bonnie Raitt or something. Incredible guitar players with small hands,
Mhm.
just figured out how to do it. You
Yeah.
can't tell me that there's anything wrong with the way that lady plays slide. Okay, it's like if you do, then you're messed up, and
Yeah.
especially that early stuff where she was playing a lot of really hardcore finger picking on like a national.
My
Good
god.
God, she's
Oh my
tiny
gosh.
little
It's like
hands.
is so
Tiny hands.
delicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she figured out what worked, rather than said, "Oh, I can't play that chord."
Right.
She
Exactly. And
said, "I'm
and
going to play it this way."
and whenever somebody's like, "Well, I can't play guitar," and I'm like, because of my hands or whatever, I'm like, "Put your hand against my
Yeah.
hand."
Give me some patience. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a
I'm
little
like,
bit more about the patience.
believe me, if
You
this
ain't
hand can
lying.
play guitar, you can play guitar.
All right. So once again, it's 20 Question Tuesdays. My guest is BettySoo. Let's see some other questions that we have not answered yet. Okay, we got that one. We got that one. We got that one. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Susan Darrow from KPFT, who we love,
Oh, I love
and we love
Susan.
public radio. KPFT. She always asks really really great questions, but sometimes she gives you a softball because it's just something that needs to be out, and I love this. It's a double question. Can you please tell us about the new album from Nobody's Girl, due out July 30th?
Yes.
Let's start there. And then she said, also, who is our Nobody's Girl, and what's the magic behind those sweet harmonies? Talk about a
Okay,
softball. I love it.
she is like, Susan, I will bring you some topo in glass bottles.
There
Um,
you go.
sh well, and also she asked, "Who is Nobody's Girl?" Because our website is wearenobody'sgirl.com.
Right.
Like, I was like, she's so strategic, it's, like, blowing my
Let
mind.
let
So,
me
yeah,
put that up again.
this this band that I have together with Rebecca Loby and Grace Pettis, we'd been friends for a decade and never really did much together. I mean, Rebecca and I had been on a couple of little, maybe one tour together, maybe it was 2 tours, I can't remember now. But you know, mostly just kind of running on parallel tracks. And Rebecca
Yeah.
asked us to go on a co-build tour together, and we thought it'd be cool to write a song. And like my big strategic thought was, if we write a song together, then it could be either the the closing of a set or something. And like it'll be the
Mm.
only tour ever, like these 3 weekends,
Yeah.
2 weeks would be the only time ever that people would hear the 3 of us sing our song together. So like why go to this show instead of one of their solo shows? Like, well, if you want to hear this song, like that's where you're going to hear it. So we went out to the hill country. Grace had some friends out there, and they let us stay the night for a writing retreat. And we ended up writing 3 songs that night. Came down in the morning. We're thanking the owners for letting us stay there. And it was like in this recording studio, and they had these artist
Yeah.
apartments. We came down and we thanked them. They bought us breakfast tacos. They were super nice. And at the end of playing our 3 songs for them, like just thanking them, they were like, "We're starting a label. Would you like to make a record with us?"
When does that happen?
It's like 2017 or yeah. And
Wow.
we were just like, excuse me?
Yeah.
That exists?
Squeeze me.
And that exists? That still happens? Like, am I in Sun Radio in 1954? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And or I mean, not Sun Radio, but Sun Studios.
Sun Studios. Yeah. Yeah.
So next thing we knew, we were a band, and we hadn't played a single show together. We, we had like never done anything together. So that's the story of Nobody's Girl. We have our first full-length album coming out at the end of the month. We co-write all of our songs together, but there are 2 covers on the record that we're really proud of. One is Carole King's So Far Away, and the other is
Ooh.
Eliza Gilkison's Beauty Way. And
Oh, that is
I
the
know,
ultimate song about the true troubadour, or really, it's about the guitar player,
yeah.
and me being someone who played with Eliza, and man, I used to love singing those high harmonies. It was the Sean Colvin, I think, did them on her record,
Yeah.
and then I remember Eliza being like, "It's weird." She's like, "I can never get anybody to do those harmonies, and you're a guy." I was like, "Yeah, I have to reach a little bit for them," but I used to love singing those with her. It's such an incredible song, from top to bottom. I
Such an
can't wait to hear
incredible
your
song.
guys' version. Now, I just want to say earlier, when we start the show and I do that intro where I'm taking questions for 15 minutes, you let us have a preview of that with the song "Promised Land."
Promised Land. Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys want, that is available already, and I'm going to make sure that's on my Roots Rock and Americana playlist after we get off today. And so fantastic, everybody. Oh yeah, I get to do the Vogue thing again. Strike a pose, there's nothing to it. Dunk into it, Vogue. Um,
I love
showing
it.
my age. Um, Not at all showing my age with that one. Okay, let's see. Dan Jason asks, ask if tickets are available at the door for Quackenbush Nobody's Happy Hour with
Yes.
John D. Graham tonight. He said, I'm not a fan of Eventbrite. Perhaps discuss it from a musician's perspective.
You can
Um,
totally buy a ticket at the door.
there, it's as simple as that. Are you is Eventbrite something that, I mean, I don't usually
That's
personally
something
have
that
a
the venue
choice.
is
Exactly.
doing. Yeah.
I
And
have I have venues that use it and other venues use other things.
and I
We
will
just kind
just
of go with
say
it.
that like Quackenbush is being super generous with the artists. I mean, they for right now, they're absorbing production costs, they're absorbing,
Mm.
I mean, and it's not like they've had, a year and a half of blockbuster
Yeah, shows to
business,
like put it in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they are just doing everything in their power to show good faith. And I'm just
You're
every
floored.
interaction I have with them floors me about how kind and generous and open and just respectful of artists that they
They're
are.
doing it
So
right.
whatever ticketing they want to use,
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
just kind of go with
great,
it, right?
great. Yeah,
You know? Well, we didn't actually ask Susan's question about what's the magic behind those sweet harmonies. Is there any particular magic? And that will lead into another question of Kate's in just a second. Is there anything particular did you guys kind of find a thing where, or do you just kind of switch them up in Nobody's Girl all the time? Is it different who does what, or do you fall
it
into
is.
certain
It's
stuff?
different all the time. It's different all the time. Um, in and now, like almost every song on this record we switch taking the leads within each
Yeah,
song,
yeah, and that's
and
really cool.
we like it. It feels more collaborative. All of us enjoy singing harmony. All of us enjoy, going to different parts of our range, and so yeah, I think it's interesting because I think for the three of us, our voices sound so distinct and so different. Um, but when we are singing together, every once in a while, we'll hear some part and we can't tell who it is. And which
Mm.
is really weird because our voices are extremely different.
When you
But
hear on their own records, you're right. But I felt that way during Promised Land when I was listening to it this morning. There was a part where I was like, wait a second, that's Grace. And I thought it was you at first. And I was like, okay, it's got to be a Nobody's Girl song. And then
right.
I was like, oh, cool. They have really blended this to make it sound like a song and make it work. And that's a bit of a conscious decision, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's interesting to me too is that not only are our voice textures naturally different, but we each sing in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Grace has kind of a pop blues country approach to singing, you know, that
Grittier.
that's yeah, it's kind of got that belty, brassy thing that she really loves to like hit that part of the edge of her voice. Rebecca's got like almost a Broadway type, very round, clear head
Yeah.
voice tone. And for me, I like to take my chest voice as high as possible, probably to a D or an E, and then switch into head voice. So like, and I
Mm-hmm.
like to use a lot of air
I
and
was gonna
not
say,
and
yeah,
not a
I was
ton of
gonna say that.
tone.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
so
You do.
so each of us have a different way of singing, and each of us have different voices, and yet somehow it works as a blend. So
Mm.
we're just like, okay, it works. Go with it.
But that's like a perfect answer to the question, because that's why there's kind of magic behind those sweet harmonies. It's because not just do you know how to sing harmonies, but you've got three different kind of voices blending and figuring out how they work.
Mhm.
And that's pretty cool. So Kate Howard, our friend of the show, of course,
Hi,
asks,
Kate.
she says, do you prefer to find your own harmonies when backing someone up, or do you like to have them assigned? And I imagine that's for other things as well, because you know, I've seen you do it when I had you and Jamie come and sing some backgrounds once on a Chris Buhalis record, and it was a
Yeah.
blast. And watch you just picking stuff real quick and go, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. But is that generally the thing between other projects, or doing harmonies for yourself, or what is it?
I mean,
Always different.
I love writing and arranging harmonies. It's super fun for me.
Yeah, me
But I
too.
also love learning other people's harmonies because it's so sometimes it's like exactly what you would have done, but most of the time it's not
Yeah,
note for note, and it's wonderful to step into somebody else's harmonic world. Just like learning a different voicing on the fretboard, right? It's like,
yes,
oh, it's the same four notes, but in this
arranged
different
differently.
arranged differently and stacked in a different order, and it gives this totally new color to that harmonic development. And so I feel like with vocal harmonies it's the same thing. So like, there've definitely been, most of the time when people call me in to do harmonies on their record, they usually say like, take like 3 passes, do different things, do what comes naturally to you. Um and um
Then
and
we'll
then let's
comp it.
just see what we have and we'll figure out which part we like best or whatever. But sometimes like like Akina and I are about to do this thing where we're singing with Gina
Akina
Chavez.
Adderley.
Akina Adderley.
Yep, yep. Friend of the show.
And and like we learned the parts that she has on her record because they have such a like Latin pop feel to them. So it's not just rhythmic, it's harmonic, right? And
It's
that's
part of the
not going to be
song.
my first instinct. So it's
Yeah.
super fun to learn a part that's already there too. So I like
I
it all.
love that. I love that. I would just say one thing that happened to me when I was recording. Here's my name drop, Lee, so you can do the ding. This is the only time I've name dropped this whole show, so it's great. Or I probably have 5 times and I didn't notice. But when Scrappy Judd brought Patty Griffin in to sing, big name drop. Patty Griffin comes to sing on my last record, the Sleeping Dogs. He said, the thing that's unique about Patty is that what she says is, since she didn't learn to sing in church and she didn't learn to sing harmonies,
Mhm.
she only creates counter melodies. So she says, I don't know how to like follow along in thirds.
Mhm.
She's like, I don't know how to do that. And so I think that's one of the things that makes her harmonies unique. And ever since then, I've also like been in the studio and said, well, why don't you try creating a counter melody too
Yeah.
and see what happens?
And that is a lot of how I think about harmony parts. And I mean, it depends on the song. Some songs, like especially if it's definitely coming from the doo-wop tradition or something,
Yeah,
then
or
it's
churchy,
definitely
or if it's
right.
churchy,
Then it's
right?
more just,
Let's
sticking
stack
into
them.
the harmony. Yeah, but one thing that I really prefer when I come in to do a harmony session for somebody is I want to see the chart.
Yeah.
I want to see the chords, because if they're doing some diminished chords or some suspended
Yeah.
chords or the plus nines or whatever or 13s, like I want to see that, because then I know that there are all these extra choices that they're already comfortable with, right?
Yeah, that's really smart.
Because I like adding those non-dominant, kind of or uh
Outside.
outside notes, and if the other players are moving into some of those I can't even speak. But if they're
Alterations. Yeah.
alterations to the chords, then I know that on some level they're already comfortable with those outside notes. And so it's probably more fair game
Yeah, it's probably
for
more
me.
that you go there. I'm going to interrupt just to say thank you to Austin Music TV before we go off. We're going to stay online for a minute. My
Thank
guest has
you.
been BettySoo. And a couple of things just for everybody again. Her Patreon is right here. Strike a pose. There's nothing to it. And the website's right there as well. And as always, thanks to AustinCityJams.com. We'll stay on and see if we can get through a couple more of these questions right
Yay.
quick. But thank you to Austin Music TV as we go off. We're still on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube with BettySoo. Okay. Oh, Graham Weber, good to see you too, brother.
Aw,
Nice. I hope you're doing
love
well, man. I
you.
haven't talked to you in a long time. All right, so we're going off air, but we're going to stay on. I always have one question that I prefer to ask, and what's strange is I kind of already know this question about you. There's only one real Jeff Plankenhorn question, and it's who is your guilty pleasure music? And I love to know people's guilty pleasure music because it's always something, and it doesn't even have to be guilty. It just has to be left field, the reason it happened is because early on in these shows, something happened and people found out that I was a Fanalo. And basically, when I was a kid, my mom would play Barry Manilow records right in between Stevie Wonder and right in between, classical music. And so I thought at 4 years old, it was just as fantastic.